This is the Steppen Gamer channel, and I am the Steppen Gamer.
Hello my faithful viewers. Today, I'm playing Marengo. Marengo is one of the scenarios in Command Post Games' Musket Battles system. In Marengo, the Austrians, over here under Melas, are trying to break out. Napoleon, over here with the French, has been sieging Alexandria, and the Austrians are getting hungry. For his part, Napoleon can't be sitting out here all year long. He needs to get back to Paris and settle things down, consolidate his power, as it were. So he was planning on having to assault Alexandria. Now historically, the Austrians beat him to the punch. They broke out. In game terms, this is shown by allowing them a full move before the regular turn one of the game begins. Their goal is either, as always, to destroy the enemy army. Now in this scenario, they need to either get off the map board here or here. And in game terms, that means they have to have either exit within their field of fire and free of the French field of fire to say they've got a clear path. So that's what they're trying to do. Now what happened historically was Desai appeared in the afternoon, basically at that point where the French army had lost, and his advent actually swung the battle. The Austrian army broke, and it was a great French victory. In the short game, the Austrians want to try to destroy 8 French blocks before Desai arrives. Once Desai arrives, they have to destroy 10 blocks. But when Desai arrives with his fresh troops, the Austrians have their hands full trying not to be destroyed themselves. Now, one of the big differences between the French army and the Austrian army is that the Austrian army was organized under the old Ancien Regime system. You've got Melas with a huge block of units under his command, and baggage, he's got the bags. His 2 subordinate commanders, Ott and O'Reilly, have much smaller commands and no baggage trains. They are essentially tied to whatever he's doing. Now the French, on the other hand, they've got the new corps system that Napoleon has come up with. So you've got Victor and Lannes out here with their own bags. And you've got Napoleon back here with the guard, the artillery, everything he needs, plus Murat and the cavalry. All these commands are operating independently. So what have we got going on today? Melas' plan is pretty simple, which is an important thing. He wants to come across the bridge here in front of Alexandria and get all the way across, and he'll probably try to get out here. Depending on how the battle goes, maybe he'll try up here. Now of course he doesn't want to get attacked in the flank by the French forces here. He'd rather brush them aside. He's got some artillery here along the Bormida River. He's hoping to keep the French back till he can get his army out. Today I'm using a special rule. This is not official, and you can, salt to taste with this system. Some of the Austrian and French troops have tan labels, signifying light troops. Now in 20th century warfare, light troops were generally had, in a classic Avalon Hill fashion, lower combat factors, because they were light, they were more mobile, but they sacrificed firepower for mobility. In the black powder era, light troops were considered very elite because it took a lot of resources to train soldiers to fire accurately, not just quickly. In musket battles, I do this by granting them the advantaged die. They have advantage when firing on the enemy. It probably won't change a lot, but it's a little flavoring that I find kind of cool. Alright, enough yada yada yada. Let's do this. Now ordinarily when playing an opponent, the labels are facing you, and if they become spent, the unit simply flips over so the labels are upside down. Playing solo, hiding units isn't necessary. And for my video purposes, having the labels face up makes it a little easier to see what's going on when I zoom in. So the game begins turn 0 with the breakout move. Boom! There they go. Now in the pre-dawn twilight of the breakout, there's no artillery fire because you can't really see anything, and they're trying to surprise. The entire army, including the cavalry, is walking on tiptoes. Be very quiet, hunting Frenchmen. Alright, we begin now with the official turn 1. Now when I play solo, I just dump out all the chits, line them up, and play them as they fell out. Now a big part of what you do when you're playing versus an opponent is you can alter turn order. You can roll various commanders to try to go sooner or later. But that kind of strategizing doesn't really fit with a solo game, where I know exactly what my opponent's doing.
Oh, so you think you know what the French are doing?
Well, actually, most of the time, I don't even know what I'm doing. Alright, let's go through these chits and see where people end up. And now the Austrian artillery wakes up. And the Austrian artillery throws Victor's left flank into disarray. And now we move to turn 2, mid-morning. We set out our chits. Hang on there, Bubba Louie. I forgot we did have one combat here. Long has run into the Austrian Jagers, guarding Mela's flank. The Jagers repulse the French. And now we'll do the mid-morning maneuvers. And Long's artillery opens up on Victor's extreme left flank, driving back the skirmishers. Then Mela's artillery fires through the small shot sleeve right here at the same troops, but without effect. Now note here that O'Reilly's artillery did a hit on the French skirmishers out here. Artillery can't destroy an enemy block. Detachments only have one hit, so if they get hit by artillery, they just retreat. And the detachment doesn't push back regular troops. And this brief informational moment was brought to you by the Command Post Game Playtest Team. Now in the late morning we've got some combat here at the town of Castel-Ceriolo. Pardon my pronunciation. Now, historically, the battle took place in the early stages here at Marengo, hence the name. This time, perhaps this battle will be called Castel-Ceriolo. Now here's another interesting rules explanation. The French here are being flanked, but they're in buildings. Towns, cities, whatever, in musket battles are simply called buildings. They're in buildings terrain, which gives them cover, and in buildings terrain they can't be flanked. So this flanking Austrian unit doesn't add anything to the battle, except that if one block gets pushed away, retreats, destroyed, whatever, the other block can continue the assault. Alright, they each get one hit. The spent French unit retreats, and the French are pushed out of Castel-Ceriolo. And now it's turn 3, late morning. And over here, Victor's left is still under fire from Ott's artillery. Ott's artillery is still looking good. Alright, late in the morning, Ott begins his drive on the French here. Melas continues to push in Castel-Ceriolo. He's trying to keep this road open so his army can move freely. Let's resolve this late morning combat. We begin with Lott's attack on Victor here on the left. As the battle opened up, the skirmishers here were driven in, but not before breaking up the Austrian attack. Round 2. Another round, and the Austrians have suffered terribly, but they keep the pressure on. Now here, both demi-brigades are being quite worn down in their continued combat. The French goal at this point is not to destroy the Austrian army, but to simply prevent it from breaking out. So the French fall back. Now in the next combat, it was originally, when the Austrians made the attack, a lone French detachment. So the spent Austrian bloc felt it was a safe attack. But Victor has reinforced it with Dessau's 24th. They're light troops. This is gonna hurt. But the first round is simply the skirmishers being driven in. And actually the skirmishers hold their position and the Austrians fall back. They knew this battle was nothing to stay and fight for. Now we move to Castel-Ceriolo. Now in this combat you'll notice that the French flanking units were themselves flanked. You resolve the combat in the order it was initiated. So the first attack is the flanking attack. After that's been determined, we'll do the flanking attack. That ends round 1. We'll go to round 2. The principal units fighting in town were completely destroyed. In other words, they've fought to the point that they're no longer combat capable, and they're removed from the game. We still have this flank attack, and Long's troops fall back. And here, the Austrian cavalry runs into the French in square. But the light Austrian dragoons managed to outmaneuver the squares, get around them, cause them to panic, and the French, again, fell back. Their object is not to die in this battle, but to trap the Austrians. And now it's turn 5. The battle has worn on well into the afternoon. That means Dessau will arrive. Alright, turn 5. Now I'm not showing the movement because I believe it gives the wrong impression. The whole purpose of the chit draw is to simulate simultaneous movement. Now of course, the thing about simultaneous movement is everything doesn't start at exactly the same time. Everything jumps off in a staggered formation. But who jumps first and who jumps second? It's not just the chit draw, first, second, third. Because sometimes going after may actually mean going before. In simplest terms, are you reacting or anticipating? Moving after means, okay, I see what he's done. so I'm going to do this. It actually shows the part where a commander might be thinking he's going to go over there. I'll receive him when he gets there. And this flexibility over what's actually being shown with the chit draw is to me what's the magic part. So you look at the beginning of the chit draw, bam, the movement is done. Now Melos continues to extend his left flank, and now he's occupying the town of Lobi. Again, Murat has held him up. Desai has come on, and he's racing over along here to prevent the Austrian breakout. So it now looks like the Austrians aren't going to be able to make the breakout. They're going to have to defeat the French. But man, you see, that's tricky because they're all spread out. They're not concentrated for an attack. They've got this combat in turns 6, 7, and 8 to destroy 10 French units. This is going to be a desperate battle. Here we have French light troops assaulting the Austrian Jagers in the town of Castel-Ceriolo. Even though the light troops were broken up into the town and ended up falling back, it essentially cost the Austrians their Jagers to do it. And now it's dinner time. Whoops. Again, I forgot some combat over here, and this is the French artillery, including the guard, which is guarding it, being assaulted by Melos' troops. And this is harsh, because although the lead troops were driven back, it was not before they overran and destroyed the artillery. Now the French have no artillery, and the dragoons simply rode off, rather than face the guard. Smart men on horses. Or maybe the horses were smarter. And the final combat here. And the French lose another unit, driving off the Austrian attack. So by the end of turn 5, the French have lost 3 of the required 10 to break them. Well, it's a start. Alright, after the chit drop, Desai has reached the point he wants to reach, and next turn he'll be defending. And Murat, with his cavalry, continues to hold up Melos' advance guard. And as Melos' command gets stretched out here, his lone HQ is stretched to the very limits of how far it can reach to organize attacks. And the sharp fighting continues in Castel-Ceriolo. And this time, the Austrians drive out the exhausted French troops. And there's one combat here as Long has managed to outflank and is attempting to overwhelm Ott's troops. The Austrians are lost. And here at the end of turn 6, both sides have lost 3 regular blocks in 1 detachment. This Marengo has largely been a battle of maneuver. And now we're at turn 7, in the early evening. Here, as the lone artillery unit behind the river, Ott's artillery waves goodbye to the rest of the Austrian army with a final salute right into Victor's flank. With devastating result, the French are driven across the Saint-Ouen. Okay, beginning of combat, we see that Victor and Ott are hotly contesting Castel-Ceriolo. And the long stretched Austrian line reaches towards the escape point. But it looks like Desai is going to have something to say about that. Alright, the fighting in Castel-Ceriolo. This time the renewed French counterattack drives out the Austrians. And on the outskirts of town, the French are driven off, but at cost. Another Austrian block goes down. And now it's turn 8, the final effort, and the chits are cast. This could be critical. Alright, now here we have the final chit draw. Here's what happened. Victor drove in and definitely has Castel-Ceriolo. Ott's corps has fallen back into the woods. And finally, for the first time today, O'Reilly's troops get into battle, hitting the extended lines here in the French center. Here in the background, bags and artillery can be seen. Murat, tired of falling back all day, orders a glorious cavalry charge, which is met with a mixed combination of Austrian cavalry and infantry. And Desai battles it out here, where the Austrians would like to control the supply line. Their Morts and Grenadiers are in combat with regular French troops. And here at the extreme end of the world, Austrian dragoons are facing more French infantry. Normally they could just drive back, but they want to control this, so they're going to stay and fight it out. We'll start with O'Reilly's drive in the center. The Austrian drive is driven back, but another French block is lost. And another French block is lost. And we ask O'Reilly, where have you been all today? 2 combats, 2 eliminated French blocks. Looks like O'Reilly's going to be the GOAT today. And Murat's cavalry charge. Trading lives for land, Murat's charge was stopped. If there were another turn of daylight left, this could be the end. But this is turn 8. This is the end. Desai has 1 flank attack, and the Austrians are driven off. And now Desai's drive on Mortson's Grenadiers. That's one French block wiped off the map. But these are French light troops. Let's see if it gets tough. Ouch and ouch. Both blocks are lost. Took 2 rounds of combat. Now it comes down to this final battle here, and this is critical. Decisive troops have to remain on this road. If they get retreated, the Austrians will have a path off, and they win. And oh man, those poor French just couldn't hang in front of the Austrian cavalry. They were driven back. Now if they were fresh, they would still have a line of fire blocking this road. But that is not the case. Now here are some hussars still on the road. They don't have to clear the whole way. They just have to have the end open so that the Austrians can get off the map. This was an intensely close game this time. Last battle, last turn, and just by a hair, the Austrian cavalry drove off the French infantry. Because this wasn't a case of the infantry defending where they could be in square. The infantry was attacking. Man, that was fun. All right. Any questions or comments, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.